So thank you so much for joining me today, Vivien Foster at the World Bank Group. And you've recently launched the Access Investment Model to estimate the cost of energy access and determine the best approach to electrifying communities. And can you tell us a little more about that tool?
Thank you very much, Susie. The Access Investment Model is a spreadsheet-based tool that enables you to estimate the cost of meeting universal access to electricity. It's a country-specific model, so it's based on the actual parameters of demand and power system configuration in individual countries, and we've developed this for about 15 countries so far. But what's particularly interesting about the Access Investment Model is that it enables you to aim for different levels of electrification. And as you know, energy practitioners have long questioned this idea that electricity is just a binary variable. You have it or you don't have it. As we know, the quality of electricity supply, the type of technology that's used, the capacity of energy that's available, the hours of service, the reliability of service, the quality of service, all of these things matter hugely to the experience of the consumer. And so the Access Investment Model is based on an underlying multi-tier framework that provides actually 5 stepping stones from no access to full 24/7 grid power. And in between there are 4 tiers which successively allow you to add a better quality of service, starting from tier 1 where you can maybe support a couple of light bulbs and a phone charger, tier 2 that adds a few more appliances, tier 3, a fuller range of appliances with greater reliability. By tier 4, you can actually support refrigeration. And by tier 5, you could do almost anything that you might want to do in the household with electricity. So the great thing about AIM is that it builds on this multi-tier framework and enables you to estimate the cost of making that electrification standard increasingly demanding over time.
And in terms of the model, how are you seeing this leading to an acceleration in energy access?
Well, we think that it's very important for countries to aim for the right level of electrification. The reason for that is that the costs vary enormously. So, for example, we learned that if the world was to achieve universal access to electricity based on tier 1 level, which is that level that gives you a couple of light bulbs and a phone charger, that would cost about $1.5 billion a year between now and 2030. On the other hand, if the world was to aim for tier 5, which is the kind of electricity supply we have in the OECD countries, that would cost more than $50 billion a year between now and 2030. So it gets increasingly expensive very steeply as you place higher and higher demands on the kind of electricity service that you want. And so it's important that countries find the right level. If you're, say, in an African country where maybe you've only got 10% or 15% electrification, you've got a huge challenge ahead of you. If you set the target too high in terms of the level of service, you may end up spending all of your limited investment budget on just expanding service to a relatively small number of customers. Whereas if you aim for a more realistic level of service, it may be possible to really genuinely reach your entire population within the next decades. So that's why we think it's important for policymakers to understand the relationship between the level of service of electricity and the investment cost that entails.
Absolutely. And in terms of those policymakers and other stakeholders, if they wanted to learn a little bit more about the model and some of the assumptions that underpin it, how are they able to do that and get a bit more detail and information?
Certainly. The best place to do that is in the Global Sustainable Energy for All Global Tracking Framework 2015, a report called Progress Towards Sustainable Energy. It's available on the web. And AIM was developed for that report, and the report contains quite a good summary of the methodology and some of the results. We are planning to put out a more detailed paper for technical specialists who want to go into it more deeply. We do have the models available on demand for anyone who may be interested in a particular country. And we do plan to put a lot of these resources up on the web in due course, but the product is still under development. Kind of countries we've done are India, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, DRC, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Myanmar, Mozambique, Madagascar, Afghanistan, Niger, Burkina, Malawi, Angola, Philippines, and Yemen. So those are the ones that are already available.
Fantastic. What a broad spectrum as well of different countries. And lastly, I'd love to ask you, because I know colleagues of mine were also with you at the World Bank at the spring meetings. And at that meeting, the campaign Power for All launched a call to action urging multilateral development banks to integrate an energy access opportunity cost into their funding decisions. And I know that you would have been engaged in conversations around that. How do you feel such an opportunity cost assessment could impact the future of development bank investments in energy access?
Yes, it was good to be part of that interesting discussion at the World Bank Spring meetings. We basically feel that this is a tool that we can use in our policy dialogue. We work with many countries that are working to increase their electrification rates. And by having a tool of this kind, we can have a really informed discussion with policymakers. We can simulate different strategies for universal electrification and give them kind of a real-time sense of what might be affordable in their countries and how that might affect the speed with which they can meet their universal electrification targets.
Fantastic. It's been absolutely wonderful to get those insights from you today. So thank you very much for spending the time with us. And I myself will also most definitely go and learn a lot more about the Access investment model. So thank you very much.